have our last talk of the session. This is Sam Comfort on the business of treatment-free queen bees.
All right. How's everybody doing? How's morale? I'm so excited to be here. So I'm going to get through this in 15 minutes. Let's do this. Well, I've been a commercial beekeeper for 16 years. These days I consider myself a recovering commercial beekeeper. I do things quite a bit differently and pretty backwards than most. But I've been treatment-free for 14 years, but I prefer this term, treatment-free but not stupid. Every apiary in the world is harboring either the coevolution between the bees and the pressures that they're facing, or it is hosting virulence and increasing virulence in the pests. And whether you're treating your bees, you're not involved in this coevolution of making the mites more benign, but also if you're not treating your bees and letting those hives crash, those parasites are jumping through horizontal transmission and you're increasing the virulence that way, because this evolution, when the way that bees are using, letting the mites take over, spreading deformed wing virus mostly to other hives, is actually bringing out the nastiest diseases and jumping from host to host horizontally rather than a vertical evolution. So that is part of these three problems. The first problem, the environment. If you have a lot of these crashing hives around you, reinfesting your hives late in the season, you're probably not going to pull off being a treatment-free beekeeper. You might have to monitor your hives. And even if you do treat them and are being reinfested, those treatments might have to reoccur to keep your bees clean and going into their winter. But this is the order that I see the problems. It's kind of a trifocal lens. Environment being most important, the methodology, and then the genetics. I'll talk mostly about the methodology today, but genetics, of course, are also very important. Tom Seeley recently was very quick to point out that the genetic traits that make resistant bees are multifaceted. It's both grooming behavior and forms of varroa-sensitive hygiene. Bees that are able to have an acute sense of smell, find the infested pupa and call them out. And we're all very interested these days in the uncapping and recapping behavior that can save the pupa, but expose the mites to more oxygen and curtail their reproduction that way. But I'm going to talk about some of the mechanical things that we can do in just our queen rearing process or splitting process that kind of mimics bee biology. When bees swarm, the old queen leaves, the whole hive is broodless by the time that new queen begins mating, and the bees, all the mites are then phoretic, able to be culled and groomed by the bees. It's almost like the bees know what they're doing. So, let's see, how does this work? So, Kirk, I've learned many things from Kirk over the years, and I've gotten great bees from him. One of the things that I learned is to honor the people that you've learned from, your heroes, over the years. So, Kirk, of course, isn't a top bar beekeeper. He would not be caught working at top bar hives. This is him working one of my hives years ago, so it's pretty much a blackmail photo at this point. But I wanted to put Kirk in here because he was literally the only person who said I could do this when I wanted to stop treating for varroa 14 years ago. And in addition to just the knowledge that he's passed on to so many people and the good genetics that he's getting out there and when he produces queens, just the support that he gave me as a young beekeeper was just so valuable. And it's something that I hope to pass on to other people. So thank you, Kirk Webster. But when I was talking with Kirk, I was selling my own nukes, and I told him that, Kirk, I feel like I'm selling my children. And he said that he used to feel that way until he started having too many. And so I started having too many bees, but I had few enough for the first couple of years that I was able to get through all my hives and break the brood cycle. I was using queen cells that I had grafted or letting the bees raise their own. And I went from 100 hives to 300 hives to 500 hives, and the mite levels were very low just from that natural brood break that I was giving them when I was making the splits. But then once I had 500 hives, I could not keep up with them and get through everything and break the brood cycle and assist them that way. So I started using mated queens in my outyards that I had raised from my stock, but still, that's when I started seeing a lot of mite pressure in those hives that didn't get the brood break. So I changed up my hive design into these little tiny box hives, and I was focusing on a couple of mating yards, and I made that the real engine that drive the whole operation. I was letting my queens go 3 weeks in the mating nukes. That means they had their own capped brood, quite a bit of it. And it was a pretty small mating nuke, so I had to, when I was catching the queens, I also had to cut back you take a little bit of brood out of them. So this is me and my friend Tuckabee sitting on these wagons going through the sets of mating nukes. I'm more interested in harvesting the brood than I am the mated queens. Say I go through 300 nukes that week, say it's a theoretical 100% take. I will get 300 mated queens, and I'll get 300 little tiny combs of brood. You can imagine the constant equipment crisis that I'm in. But I started taking this brood, and after a couple of brood breaks, the brood is almost virtually mite-free from that gap in the egg laying and the gap in the mite reproduction cycle. And it's also super well fed. These bees that are forming as pupa right there will be born with a lot of vitellogenin in their blood, and they'll be able to regurgitate that as nurse bees to the next generation. I figured that this is the brood that I wanted to go into my cell raiders, these super well nourished bees that are very clean, and I had a whole bunch of it every week just from my mating nukes. So I started banking this brood for a week, and above the queen excluder, so it was totally capped by the time it could go into next week's cell raisers. And after a couple weeks of boosting these cell raisers that I made to house my little baby combs of brood, every 7 days I would boost this little box with some more capped brood, totally capped, and a new graft. A couple rounds of boosting them, they started to look like this. This is what you want your cell raisers to look like. But I'm using the same box, so I developed a system that was self-contained. The brood coming from the mating nukes, going to the cell raisers, and cells go back to the mating nukes. So I didn't even need out yards. I didn't have to split any bees out other than the nukes I was doing with. And I got it down to a weekly system to a point where I knew what I was doing every single day of the year. And believe it or not, I need structure in my life. So every Monday we are boosting these cell raisers and putting a new graft in. On Tuesday, we start catching that week's set of mating nukes. We pull out the extra brood and bank it above a queen excluder. And the brood stays there for next week's cell raisers. On Wednesday, we finish catching that set, and on Thursday, those queen cells go in after the mating nukes have sat queenless for 1 to 2 days. And so having this structure actually took a lot of stress out of raising queens. It's seen very complicated 8-day, 4-day systems. But doing this on a weekly schedule, it means every week I get to try again, see how good the mating percentage can be, how big the queens can be. I can tweak certain variables of the system. Say I can change the feed on the cell raisers, I can change a design of the mating nukes. And it got to the point, well, for one example of like one of the experiments I started trying, see each one of these rings, this is an aerial shot of one of my mating yards. Every little circle are a bunch of stands of mating nukes. There are 4 mating nukes per stand, and that center stand is the brood bank. And I started keeping each one of these little circles dedicated to a specific family line that I was grafting from. So I was getting brood from that family line. It was going to that family line's brood bank, and then that brood was going to a dedicated cell raiser of that family line. So I was thinking, oh, maybe this would get better cell take, better acceptance of the queen cells in the mating nukes, better care of the virgin queens. I really saw no difference. When the weather was good, the takes could be over 90% no matter what you do. But one thing about that system of really separating the different family lines is that I really got to know the families very well, especially like the colors of the bees, their behavior, how runny they are on the combs. And one of the real good determining factors from doing this is the health of the cell raisers and the queen cells they raised. So a couple of the cell raisers were culling some of the queen cells before fruition, and those are some of the lines that I terminated and moved on to different families. So I was grafting from 6 different families, but I had a 7th cell raiser every week, and I would use that for a guest breeder. So it enables a lot of fun for like once you have like you know what you're doing and every day of the year. And since I was that organized at that point, I started inviting people who were interested in queen rearing or wanted to up their queen rearing game to see that 4-day system of grafting Mondays, catching and banking brood Tuesdays, finishing catching Wednesdays, Thursday the cells go in. So this is my buddy Aaron from Jennings Apiaries. He came, he had a couple hundred hives, and he saw this 4-day system, his grafting, catching, and seeing how it could work and how one person could, raise 3,000-4,000 queens in a year. And at the end of the 4-day queen rearing gauntlet, he looked at me and said, "This is way too much work. I'm just gonna buy queens from you." And I'm like, oh, that really wasn't the intention. I'm really hoping more people can raise some good survivor stock and get more queen breeders out there. And I started thinking, yeah, this is too much work. It's definitely not for everybody the way I do this. So how do we make this simpler? A lot of my beekeeping is trying to keep the sense of awe, the sense of wonder and adventure every day, because in America, the commercial beekeepers are some of the most miserable people you will meet. Not all of them, but it's a really, really tough livelihood, and not everyone wants to pick up this mantle. You wake up in the morning, you have to feed your bees, you have to medicate your bees, you have to move your bees thousands of miles in order to make ends meet. There are a lot of alternatives, and it can be fun, and actually profitable. So how do we simplify the whole system? Well, there's a lot more people these days selling queen cells, ripe queen cells that you can actually ship. These are from my friends the Mixas who are in Florida. They ship at day 14, so the cells actually arrive on day 15. That's the day that they start to emerge, all emerge by day 16. After that, so you pick them up in the morning at the UPS hub, get them right into your mating nukes before they start emerging. But they're in little cell protectors packed with plenty of cover bees and insulation. And I see this as a much easier way of exchanging genetics, and at a couple dollars a queen cell rather than $35, $40 a mated queen. You can make more, you don't need this whole armada of hundreds of mating nukes out there to just get some cool genetics out there and provide queens. How do we make it even simpler than that? Well, I in the past have messed around with 2-day queen cells. These are taken out of the cell raiser 48 hours after the graft, placed into a split, and the split will actually finish those queen cells for you. As if they had raised their own, you just give them a little bit of a jump, but you're also changing the genetics. So if we're talking about genetic exchange, getting more varroa-sensitive hygiene or the biting behavior out there, this is a cool way that you can ship genetics without even any cover bees. Actually, you want to cool these 2-day queen cells down so the metabolism of the larva slows down. You just wrap them in a damp paper towel, and you don't even have to write live bees on the envelope. So something that anyone can do if you're setting up cell raisers and grafting. But what's even simpler than this? Well, the bees actually do a pretty darn good job raising their own queens, left to their own devices. And in the 15 years that I've been grafting, I've always done a few walk-away splits, giving a split the right resources and just walking away and seeing what happens. So I'm doing a poster Thursday, come and check it out, with some the quality control trials that I've done to see how can we get a good queen from just a walk-away split. What are the conditions of the split and the assays of a good queen that would result from that. So I find the best ways are actually to let the queens just fight it out, let them raise multiple cells, and the bees have a conscious quality control, as David Tarpey proved at NC State University, chewing down the inferior weight queens before they emerge. And here we have some of that drama. You can see that little queen right there. She's emerged from the cell that's in the middle there. She already chewed down the ones on the far right. And today is her birthday, and she's going out there to slaughter her sisters. So where beekeeping is going in the future, we have to make it more fun. We have to make it more enjoyable. And being part of this coevolution where bees have evolved to handle so many problems and pests over the millennia, and now just as humans, for reduction reasons, have stymied that evolution and actually made the pests, the varroa mites, and the associated diseases so much worse in the last few decades. Whereas it is possible, by knowing the biology, figuring out what works for you, and you can be part of where bees will be going in a more viable and sustainable beekeeping future. Because the way I see it, we're all different individuals. We're all going to do things a lot differently. And what kind of bee world are we going to pass on to people? Is it going to be fun? Is it going to be interesting? How difficult is it going to be? So us being all different, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me if you're treating your bees or not treating your bees. I run anarchy apiaries. Anarchy does not make rules for other beekeepers. We can all still get along. It's fine, but in talking about difference, we need people trying new things, doing things in different ways, finding really cool boots to go out to your new bees, and where is it gonna go? Well, supporting difference and never suppressing it is gonna be key to having a diverse world. And of course, the bees tell us that a diverse world is a healthy world. But just remember, being the kind of beekeeper you want to be, that fear, aggression, prejudice, monoculture, those are the ways to the dark side. So the state of the bee world is changing faster than we will ever know. So be ready, stick with your friends, and swarm the state. Take a few questions or come see me after class, you know. Yep.
Have you done any testing for how long the viability of the true cell queens are at room temperature or like?
That's something through a SARE grant, a Sustainable Ag Research and Education grant that we just got there, that we're going to be testing conventional cell raising methods to the 2-day cells finished by the nukes to these little micro walkaway splits that I made, and looking also at the labor input. And I figure after 2 days in a cell raiser, you can start more cells per cell raiser that way, because it's not finishing them. 2 days later, you take them out and ship them, put in a whole other batch in the same starter finisher, and you can even provide them to people who don't have bees and just want to eat the royal jelly. You know, pop them in their mouth in a little wax cut. So there's potential there, and we're talking a lot about genetic exchange and making it easier for people that way. But there's work to be done, and it's pretty neat that you can just ship them anywhere and pop them in a hive, and it is quite viable. So we'll see you get back to me. Anyone else? Well, good luck this year. Thank you, everybody.
And that concludes the session. Thanks for coming.
About 80 cents of lumber invested.
Sorry, can you explain the 4-day thing again?
Sure.
There is no slower for yeah.
Well, if you're raising queens weekly, on a weekly schedule,
Yeah.
I do 9 weeks in Florida, I do 9 weeks in New York, and I do the
I
same
was
thing
thinking
every
where the
week.
palms are on that sort.
If you want to like do, I'm 4 days out of the week, I am in the mating yard. So Monday, we graft,
Okay.
you know. We boost the cell raisers with brood from last week. So like we put more brood, they're queenless starter finishers. They're always queenless. We just put more brood in, totally capped every week. And so then we graft a couple hours after that, the end of Monday. Tuesday, we go to the mating nukes, we catch queens, and we take brood out because they need to be cut back, and we bank it. We put it above a queen excluder. That's for next week's cell raisers. We bank it so they cap all the larvae. There's no way that they can make a queen. So that's for next week. On Tuesday, and then Wednesday we finish the set. Thursday the cells go in from the previous week, like that. So we're grafting every 7 days, but we're using the cells 10 days after the graft is when we put the cells in. So we graft the week early, but we're banking brood for the next week, like that. And once you get the hang of it, but we never miss a day, rain or shine, we got to be out there. There'll be 400 little swarms hanging in the trees.
Once you started rolling, how long does that go for?
I do like 3 rounds. So I got 3 sets of nukes, pretty much. So and they go 3 weeks. So this set this week, this one this week, that one that. So 3 weeks have gone by the time we come back. So we do 3 rounds on each nuke. So it's 9 weeks. So we do 3 catches from there, and it's about 300 queens is what we're catching. 300 to 400 nukes is what we go through in a week these days. So and it's usually just me, maybe 1 or 2 other people, whoever's around, and it's pretty fun to do week after week because we're always experimenting, trying new things, and producing a lot of queens. So the price of queens is through the roof these days. So the demand is huge.
No, when you sell, it's never too much. Don't worry.
It's not enough for the amount of like blood, sweat, and tears and honey that it takes, but.
I believe I saw your video where you're playing guitar about Varroa. Is it you?
Yep, that's me.
A couple of years, yeah. Okay, now, because when you said anarchy.
Yep. There's all kinds of beekeepers out there.
You're the most atypical beekeeper that I ever seen. I can tell you that. Because
there's gonna be more of me.
No, because where I come from, Europe, beekeeping is profession for the very calm people, like preachers, pastors, teachers. And I see in America, welder wants to be a beekeeper. No way.
Yeah, everyone's different.
Could I actually ask you to tell us what a walkaway split is?
Walkaway split. It's when you take a strong hive, split it in 2, walk away.
Don't do anything after.
Come back in a month. Whatever side is queenless will build a queen in her absence. So yeah. So we're messing around with it. Come out Thursday and I'll explain the whole process. But we call them po' boy splits or redneck splits, or it's just something. Yeah. Don't buy anything. You buy
What he's saying, you cannot screw up anything you do. Don't worry.
it screws up. You put it back together. No laws. But it's a simple way to make your own bees rather than buying bees from someone else. If you buy bees from someone else, you're buying somebody else's problems.
Hold on a second, but
I
you're
didn't
selling
catch where you're
queens.
from.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm always wondering.
I'm trying to put myself out of a job.
No.
That's seriously. I'm not a capitalist.
Why would you
Well, you're
I
doing
have,
a good job of it. That was a great lecture. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And where are you from in the States?
I'm in New York and Florida, spots in between, up and down the coast.
John.
Got
Where in New
1,000
York?
some
Cool.
hives.
Where in New York?
Like Hudson Valley, like
Where?
Hudson, Catskill, down there, a couple hours north of New York City, right there. Yeah.
Do you have a website or anything?
AnarchyApiaries.org. Yeah, that's me. So I'm easy to track down. I do eventually respond to emails.
Hey Sam.
Hey.
Hey. So I'm very different than when I came to Anarchy years ago. A schedule that's hilarious.
I know. So I need structure.
No, I love it. So I'm wondering how. I love the idea, first of all, the organization of the crop circle. Like that's a great.
Florets.
Florets. Okay, so what I'm wondering is when you are grabbing that brood and you're putting it inside your brood minder situation for raising your cells, how are you managing the comb? Are you constantly drawing fresh comb on those cell
My mating
builders?
nukes raise a ton of comb.
They
I'm
do.
giving them an empty skewer,
Totally.
empty like that. In the innermost position, I have a little box with a divider,
Yeah.
so a little 4-comb nuke and a little 4-comb nuke. When we remove the queen, we also take out a comb and brood,
Yeah,
give
yeah.
them an empty bar.
An empty bar.
Towards the middle, the warmer spot, and so 3 weeks later, it's drawn out, brand new wax, full of brood.
How
So-
many, when you're building these baby nukes, how many cups of bees or how many frayed combs of brood are you putting in there in order to make them
It's usually just
cell?
one. A comb of brood, a comb of food, and I'm doing this like when dandelions.
Totally,
are
I was
on.
gonna say.
You don't want to make them stronger than that because they're going to go 3
Because they're
weeks. Yeah.
And then when they are developing that comb, when they are building up, what I'm wondering is that when you have your cell built